Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, where we bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. Companies going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point, multiple catalysts in place. And today we have with us Delic Holdings, DELCF, over the counter, Matt Stang, the CEO. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Matt, last time you were on, I think it was very interesting because you really articulated an important idea. I think investors are kind of starting to understand the opportunity. It was why you're on the next super stock platform, why there is that 10x to 100x upside. I think we might have had a 30x there. We talked about a road to a 500 million market cap, right? The last time you were on, I said, hey, what's the path to being can you get to a 500 million market cap? And you pretty much laid it out. So I think if we can just repeat that, and then we'll go into the latest news and how that fits into the context of that $500 million story.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the main thing here is we are in probably the fastest growing market in the country for healthcare. I don't know if you saw the New York Times had a big piece on psychedelic revolution is coming, and not only is it coming, it's here. Right? There's a moment right now where you have an opportunity to invest in the real change in psychiatric care for all of America, and that's a total addressable market in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So we're not talking about some small or medium-sized opportunity. This is a giant world-changing opportunity, and it's an inflection point in the world, right? There's a change in acceptance. There's a change in substances being available, and what we've done is created a really incredible ecosystem for people to access that care. So we're giving people here and now the ability to get psychiatric care through psychedelic wellness. And so what does that mean? That means you can come to one of our clinics in Arizona or California and actually get ketamine therapy, and you can deal with depression, PTSD, anxiety, OCD. So there's a ton of different multi-billion-dollar psychiatric conditions that are being cared for with psychedelic wellness right now. And so how do we get to that $500 million market cap? Very easily. I mean, I think the reality is we have a clear pathway through buying and building clinics, and that's part of our announcement today, to get to a $20+ million run rate by the end of the year.
And so just to kind of so everybody knows what we're talking about. So essentially, I think, look, in the psychedelic space, if you can show 20 million, 25 million revenues, I believe that's going to get a 25x multiple easily. I mean, like right now, well, the market's, the NASDAQ is, taking a bit of a beating right now. So multiples are coming down a little bit. But this is something where, easily we could get to a 20x plus. Because again, it's the market pays a premium for high growth, unique areas. Minimum 10x, 20x plus. If again, we've had, I think Teladoc was trading at 50x. I mean, in the healthcare space, we've had some crazy multiples. Even right now, I think One Medical might be up there, and those are traditional medicine basically. There was a basic traditional medicine, with.
You look at One Medical, and what they've done is built a chain of clinics that give access to primary care. What we're doing is building a chain of clinics, that'll be across the country by the end of this year, that give people access to psychiatric care through psychedelic wellness. And that means right now ketamine, but it also means if you read the large front cover of the New York Times this weekend, that MDMA will be here by the end of 2022 or beginning of 2023, and psilocybin right behind it. So both of those substances will be FDA cleared. And where do you go get it? You go get it at a clinic that specializes in psychedelic wellness, which is what we're building.
But just before we get into all the clinic part of it, this is the clinics. That's just one part of your business, because you're really doing, again, you're doing the whole what do you call this ecosystem where you have you have recreational also as part of it, right?
That's right. So what we see is this opportunity to build a really interesting ecosystem that funnels people through from discovery to information to experience. So we have a web platform that gets hundreds of thousands of people a month that come to discover psychedelics and psychedelic wellness. We have an event series, Meet Delic, that allows people to see best-in-class practitioners and meet with people in real life. And then we have these clinics that allow people to go and actually experience safe and effective psychedelic wellness. We've got a lab business in Canada that's doing a bunch of really interesting IP work to build out a portfolio of novel psychedelic products, psilocybin specifically, to go into these legal states as they allow for. I mean, look at it.
That's another big part of the story. Is this you have the legalization thing is about to go like, global. But I mean, I don't want to say global, but it's going to go national. Faster, and it's going to go faster than cannabis. I think we should add, Matt. We have a lot of new people watching right now, and I think tell them a little bit about your background. High time. You're Mr. High Times. I mean, you're one of the pioneers of the legalization of cannabis, and how you see this. Same thing happening in the psychedelics, because that's a unique situation.
Yeah, for sure. So, my background is 20 years in cannabis, was an owner and operator of a company called High Times for many years, and built that into one of the preeminent brands and businesses in the cannabis space, and helped really push for legalization across the country, push for medical marijuana and then recreational cannabis. And we're, I think what you're talking about is that there is a huge movement afoot to essentially end the restrictive war on drugs, right? So you have what happened in Oregon is a leading indicator. So Oregon just legalized therapeutic use of psilocybin. So what does that do? That creates a state legal clinical model. So we have this best-in-class psychedelic wellness clinic model that we can then drop into a place like Oregon with novel products that we develop in our lab in Vancouver. So we'll have specialized moat, like products that people can't otherwise access unless they come to our clinical therapeutic places in Oregon. And that same model will work in Colorado, California, any of the other states that are right now contemplating a 2022 ballot initiative to allow for either entheogenic plants or psilocybin on its own, or some combination thereof. So there's going to be a really interesting opportunity to build both the FDA clinical model, which is the one that we're already executing on, and then the state legal clinical model, which will look a little bit more like the cannabis regulation, but also, I believe, have some, let's call it care requirements. So people aren't just thrown into the deep end. They're given therapeutic benefits and therapeutic care to experience their psychedelic products. So, what does that mean? That means that we have the baseline, the product line, the ecosystem to push people to it, and obviously the experience and know-how how to really build that into a massive business.
Okay. And by the way, so let's, so to recap, the ecosystem, one of the things you mentioned Oregon, but one of the things you mentioned also the lab in Vancouver, which is developing essentially, it's innovation in delivery formats, it's going to be like, so that, you have that, again, competitive moat. One of the things that's interesting is you're doing you're going to be able to deliver psychedelics through a vaporizer, right?
Yeah, so we have some very interesting technology around vaporization and psilocybin. Our lab in Vancouver is probably the preeminent lab for vaporization and cannabis and hemp in Canada, but in the world really, because it's difficult to get that license. So they've been working on this for the past 2.5 years, really kind of building a center of excellence around vaporization specifically and oil and extraction. for the cannabis and hemp side. And so we've really taken that and they've started to develop some really interesting IP around psilocybin, vaporization, inhalabilization, and looking for methods to allow people to have that experience without spending a day, right? The problem we have right now is you look at psilocybin and MDMA therapy, and they're both 6 to 8 hour therapies. So I think a lot of this is going to be giving people a 1 to 2 hour experience with recovery that allows them to experience this, but not have to, take an entire day away from them in a way that is still super beneficial and therapeutic to their needs. So I think that's where we see there being a huge opportunity.
So this is, and we talked about it last time. I think it's really it would be a very unique type of product, because this, again, the big idea is, it gives you that fast onset, offset. You get your psychedelic experience. 1 hour, you go on to the next thing. This is what everybody wants now: instant gratification.
Yeah.
Being in control of the whole experience. I mean, basically would be a game changer for for psychedelics, because this is not like in the 60s or whatever. This is what people want now.
It's become part of that, let's call it wellness, biohacking, quick change kind of tech world, right? Where people are not satisfied with the things as they are. They want things to be even better, and to give you a better experience, and to have it be quicker, and to have it turn around quicker, so that you can really get through it, do it, and then be on to your next thing in a kind of really wellness focused way. And I think that's super important, that we deliver what customers want, what patients want, whatever we want to term them. I think there's just this huge opportunity to serve people in a way that builds, I think a $1 billion plus business. Like I think when you ask, can it be a $500 million business? I think there's no way it's not a $1 billion business. There's so much opportunity. There's so many different pieces of the psychedelic opportunity that are coming out now. It's once again, we're coming out of the most traumatic time in most people's memory, and you have a rash of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. What in the current psychiatric world, there's nothing that really works for it, right? That is the key point, is nothing works. There is no blockbuster drug from big pharma that works on these things. There is maintenance. There's stuff that gives about 4%. Now, the MAPS trial just came out and had 63% efficacy in PTSD. So like the numbers are staggering, and the opportunity is massive. And where are people going to go do that? They're going to do it at a large chain of reproducible, understandable, well-marketed clinics. And so we're going to be that place people look to find psychedelic wellness.
Matt, would you say that you could be the McDonald's of psychedelics, where it's, in terms of that it's very, organized, it's,
I would hope that we have a higher quality standard, but I would say,
but people, when they walk in, they know exactly what they're going to.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is a reproducible, well-built, and understandable model. I would say yes. McDonald's pioneered, creating a reproducible model across
scalable for investors. The word is scalable that they want to hear. They want to hear.
And that's it. And that's what we think. We can create something that is super scalable, super reproducible, and profitable, right? And I think another key is that most people looking at this space are looking at 7 to 10 years of runway, where you have to support someone's burn for 7 to 10 years before they make a single dollar. Where we are looking at this as, we're going to earn money for our shareholders, starting with these acquisitions and moving forward, and we're going to just continue growing and scaling that cash flow positive business. So we're here to really build something that is not only a lot of revenue, but also cash flow positive. And so that's where we want people to be. We want people to have that opportunity to touch this psychedelic revolution without having to wait 7 or 10 years to see $1 off of it.
Yeah. So I mean, the key takeaway is that this is a revenue generating business. Let's dive into right now the news, the acquisitions, the rollout. You actually today you had an announcement that just came out this morning about you're adding two more of these psychedelic clinics to your platform.
That is correct. So we are doing 2 more clinics. Scaling them out sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks. The first one should be open. Then a couple weeks after that, the second one. So that'll be 4 in our portfolio so far. And you'll see quick growth from us going forward. We have a really experienced team, and just having the data through our platform on where people are searching for these types of things allows us to really pinpoint on where we should be. And so, you think about this as a data-centric ecosystem. So we see people searching, we know people are looking for psychedelic wellness, and we can help by building these clinics for people to get that psychedelic wellness they're looking for.
Okay, and actually, so these clinics, the new clinics, they're in Arizona.
Yes.
Right? I think in Phoenix or something, or where are you doing these in?
Yeah, so they're in the Arizona Phoenix metropolitan area. We'll announce the actual locations.
Okay.
Shortly. And the idea is, Phoenix is one of the fastest growing metro hubs in America.
Everybody from California is moving there.
Everybody from California is moving there. That is correct. You've got a lower tax and a much cheaper cost of living, and weather that stays pretty great 10 months out of the year. And people are really, they're very interested in psychiatric care. I think our model is really interesting because we're very data driven and have built out this program that, utilizing our years of experience in delivering ketamine, which is the only legal psychedelic right now, we have a very data-driven approach where we can get better outcomes than other folks based on previous results. So we're able to really help people at scale. And I think part of this is just making it available to a broader range of people. There's some clinics that are charging upward of $1,000 per visit, where we're in the 500 per visit, and really encouraging people to work through insurance. So we're making it super accessible to folks who might not otherwise be able to afford this. And I think that broadens the scope of people who can really utilize it.
Make this mainstream, basically. I mean, I think that's been one of the big challenges in the space is that, from what I understand, that traditionally this psychedelic therapy, it would be thousands of dollars out of pocket, like $2,000-$4,000 for a treatment.
Exactly.
And you're able to, and so I think your unique advantage, if I understood it correctly, is that you're able to get this paid by insurance.
Yeah, exactly. We're able to make it so that folks who are not the top half or the top quarter percentile of people can afford to do this, right? And I think there's no greater feeling than making wellness available to folks. It's a mission for us. For me personally, I really want to see people get well. My wife is from the center of the country. She's from Texas, and she wants to see the folks that she grew up around able to access this treatment, not just the big cities on the coast. She wants us to extend our treatment to the folks in the middle, right? The folks who can't afford to pull $4,000 in cash out of their pocket and pay for this, but who desperately need something to get them out of their PTSD or depression or treatment-resistant depression or anxiety or OCD, and they see because the current psychiatric drugs have no real long-term model to fix this. We have such a gigantic total addressable market
So from what I understand, essentially the big advantage that these psychedelics have is that I mean, I don't know if I'm simplifying this, but the result is it's almost like an instantaneous change because I guess it takes you, and I've never taken mushrooms, so but my understanding is it kind of takes you out of from what everybody's explained is it kind of takes you out of the reality. All of a sudden, it lets you see the big picture. It does something to your brain in a positive way where, like all of a sudden you realize, wow, I don't really have any problems.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. People,
and it's not like you're on this forever. It's like a couple of times and you're done.
Sorry about that. There's a gardener going by on the other side of our house. So I was saying that, with psychedelics, you have this incredible opportunity to really change your ego, right? So it's like your ego goes away, and your ego is the driving force for all that is good and about you, but it also, in folks with anxiety, depression, PTSD, it is overactive, right? It becomes its own prison. The mind becomes a prison. It makes you feel stuck inside of your head. And so what does a mushroom trip do for you? It literally can help dissolve the ego. It helps, that is your standard every day. I'm going to check the burner before I walk out and make sure the stove is off kind of ego. The default mode network that controls crossing the street and looking both ways, that is turned off. And what is activated is the parts of your brain you haven't used since you were a child. So when they do brain scans, they show that parts of your brain that don't light up in everyday fashion will spark and turn wonderful colors, right? So you see these brain scans and it's amazing. And so what is that doing? It's neuroregenerative. It's rebuilding pathways in your brain you haven't used since you were a child. And it allows you to find alternative pathways through your brain that are going to help you cope with and deal with these long-term, sometimes disabling issues that people deal with, right? So it's really amazing and transcendent, and it's not. So it is both immediate and also long-lasting, right? So it's an interesting balance.
That's what makes it a game changer, as opposed to Prozac or whatever psychiatric. Because that's stuff.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody gets better. I mean, it's
no one gets better. They just get stuck on a drug.
And has side effects. There's a lot of dangerous side effects.
It makes you unable to have a normal sex life. It makes you unable to have up and down conversations. You're just stuck in neutral. There's so many things that classic antidepressants do to you that people are desperate to get off. And so when you give people these transcendent experiences and help them train their brains to rebuild neural pathways that they haven't used since they were children, you're giving them both an immediate kick, like an immediate boost out, and then a longer lasting change in how their brain works. Now, here's the thing, it's not a miracle, right? It's not like, and you're done. You're not like, oh, we're done. But it is miraculous in how it works, right? It gives people who thought they were stuck inside of their head and never going to get out, it gives them a real pathway. And it shows them in that experience that they can be different. And so when they drift back to being the way they were, they know there's an alternative, right? So unlike some of these classic SSRIs and antidepressants where you're either on the drug and you feel kind of mediocre, but you're okay, and you're off of it and you feel horrible, you have a third way, which is you've now found that your mind can work the way you want it to, and all you have to do is go through more treatments, and you can find your way to that feeling of wholeness, of oneness, of feeling not caught behind your brain. And then people utilize that and train themselves to be more present and more happy and more in the moment. And it's really beautiful. I've talked to so many, over the 3 years that we've done Delic, I've met some people whose lives have been completely changed, who've, rebuilt marriages, who've gone from being like down and out and unable to do anything to being normal functioning members of society. And they get so happy, so I want to say a little bit evangelical, because they're like, I found something after spending so long. You know, it's very biblical. I was trapped in the desert and I saw the burning bush and I found my way to the promised land, right? But it is that
look at Steve Jobs. I mean, if he didn't do, was it acid or mushrooms, whatever it was, we wouldn't have the Apple computer.
That's right. We wouldn't have different. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you on my MacBook or talk to you on my iPhone. Or
I'm using a MacBook right now. I can't go back to the PC, but it's basically we owe it to psychedelics. I mean, really. I mean, because
that's exactly it.
Otherwise, he would have been an insurance. He probably would have been a successful insurance salesman if he didn't take
right with a nice black turtleneck on.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not even a turtle. Maybe it would be, he'd be dressed like me.
Yeah, exactly. In a nice suit, like no problem.
Suit, yeah. So okay. So the takeaway is so today you announced you're launching 2 more clinics, and you're going to have how many by the end of the year? You're going to be what's going to be the number? And let's go through the math real quick, and then we'll kind of recap through the other stuff, and hopefully we can answer a few questions. We may have a few minutes.
That'd be great. So the way we see this is, we're on track to have somewhere between 15 and 20 clinics by the end of the year. Those clinics should have a run rate of about $1 million. So, when we're talking about how we get to
each US, by the way, you're talking about US now.
US. Okay. I'm saying, how do we get to $1 billion market cap? Because 500 million, I think, will be low by the end of the year. But I think what we see is a clear path through acquisition and opening to get to that number very easily. Our lab business should be on a run rate of about $1.5 million to $2 million at that point. Our event series should have about a $750,000 run rate by that point. And, we have some other ancillary products and services that should be able to get another $500,000 to $1 million. So we see a very clear path to a $20 million run rate by the end of the year. And we think that, at 25 to 30 times that run rate would be a reasonable number for something that's as hyper growth as psychedelics. We think psychedelics are a transformative, once in a generation opportunity to create a new paradigm for psychiatric care. And psychiatric care is $800+ billion a year business just in the United States. And that's the reality. The reality, you look at just the Army spends like $40 billion a year just on their folks with PTSD. Like, the numbers are staggering. You look at the numbers and the total addressable market. There's 50 to 100 million people in our country who could do with psychedelic therapy. Like,
there's a massive. There's a really between what's going on, the from before and now with the stuff from the pandemic. There's definitely a massive need for effective mental health treatment that works. Not just you're gonna be popping pills for the rest of your life, and you're gonna have also side effects. By the way, a lot of these mass shootings, most of those guys are taking some sort of psychiatric medicine, like 90%. It's not like, hey, it's so there's if these guys did the ketamine, I think would be okay. It would be
if you gave people access to psychedelic wellness in a way that allowed them to actually heal rather than trying to put a Band-Aid over it, which is what a lot of current psychiatric care does. I think you'd have a really incredible resurgence in people with this opportunity to change their minds, right? And it's like you give people that opportunity, they see the difference, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to actually have this opportunity to be different. And they don't feel stuck. They don't feel trapped. They don't feel unseen and unheard. And it really, it's a social issue, but it's also a gigantic business opportunity, right? It's not an either or. It's that the social issue is the gigantic business opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is I mean, the company could do very well by doing good. I mean, I know as cliche as it sounds, but it's the reality. So,
But it's real. It's real. Like
yeah.
by pushing this out there, by really building this business, we're giving tens of thousands of people access to safe and effective care to make them live a better life. And that's
I I think so. It looks like we don't have any questions. I think Matt, I think you've answered everybody's question. You've blown them away, but no. I think let's kind of recap, and we'll end right here. Actually, so recap top 3 reasons why investors, should consider, Delic.
Yeah, I think we're going to build the biggest psychedelic clinic chain in America, and I think that's a huge opportunity. People need this help. They need this service. And if you are part of that, if you're investing in that, you have an opportunity to make a lot of money because building this out will be a massive business. I think we've created a protocol that's really evidence-based that allows people who would not normally be able to afford this to actually be able to get it, to have it through insurance, to have it through cost-effective measures. And I think, the whole ecosystem that we've built really is there to support this. We've built a full and complete discovery modality, a method for folks to come in to learn about psychedelic wellness, to experience and find what is best in class, and then to physically try it at one of our clinics. And I think that's unlike anyone else. And we've built it all in a real business manner, meaning businesses that earn money at the end of each month. They're not just trying to burn investor dollars. We are actually building a long-term value in a real business that will sustain year after year.
I think one thing, I think you forgot to mention is you've brought in some key people, marketing people in your company from Bulletproof Coffee, which was, I think it's very kind of relevant almost because it's a very similar almost to take those skills to apply them from that thing to, the psychedelics. I mean, it's like very important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So we brought in Zach Garcia as our CMO, and he's really kind of built a full business in a similar manner where he's taken something that was fringe and made it mainstream and turned it into
it was like butter weird.
Yeah,
coffee,
it was
paleo,
it was keto, and it was butter in your coffee, right? And those things,
they went from 0 to how much are they doing in revenues right now?
Like 200 and something million a year. So he's really super experienced with taking these affinity communities and really creating a bond and then helping them find products that serve their lifestyle. And so that
is the same. It's the same like roadmap, like what he did with the paleo stuff, the bulletproof. Same thing with psychedelics. I mean, especially now that you're gonna have the vaporizers with the mushrooms all coming out of the lab and all that other good stuff.
I think it is incredibly similar in just understanding how to take something that's been fringe and make it mainstream, and how to build this affinity group marketing where people feel connected to the brand and then actually go, utilize the products under the brand name in a way that is really effective and helps them with their lifestyle. So I think we really have this incredible opportunity to build out this platform. And, it's not rocket science. What's there, we have the platform, we have the ecosystem, and we have the base to build it off of. So it's not like we're looking to do something. We're already there. It's just we're going to really, rocket ship this thing. And I think, people who are part of this over the long term are going to make a lot of difference in the world and a lot of money. And I think those two things should go hand in hand in this opportunity because they're helping build a new paradigm for psychiatric care. And that's what psychedelics are here for. And I think it's broken. It's irreparably broken. And there's a huge tipping point and change that it is happening as we speak. So if you're in on the ground floor of this, you have a chance to be part of a multi-$100 million total addressable market.
Matt, thank you for coming on again, and congratulations on the new clinics you're going to be rolling out shortly. And we look forward to hearing more good news from Delic in the coming weeks.
Thank you. I'll be back the next time we have something great to talk about.
Fantastic, Matt. Thank you again. Okay, let's get ready for our next presenter, Dr. Chamberlain. Welcome.
Hi, Jack.
How you doing?
Very good yourself.
Fantastic. I just want to get things set up. I think so if you can just maybe I want to get you more in the center. Okay, so if we can get the camera just lowered a little bit, so we'll get set our more view. Yeah, we want to see more view in the picture. Okay, so let me make sure we get everything set up. Let me get your banner up there, and we'll start in just a second. Okay, in a second. Okay, just stand by. Okay, I'm just gonna do a little countdown, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, May 11th. We're back with Tetra Bio-Pharma TBPMF. Dr. Guy Chamberlain. Dr. Guy, welcome back.
Well, thanks, Jack, for having me here again today.
Absolutely. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We have the exciting news. We have the financing. So we have good news, and we have a lot of investors are upset about the financing, but we'll explain it, what that's all about. We'll unpack all the details. So for anybody that is just tuning in, anybody that's just joining us, our goal with the Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream is to bring you those stocks which have 10x to 100x upside potential. So these are companies going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. They're at a key inflection point in their development, right at that threshold of explosive growth, and there's multiple catalysts which can ignite that stock price. And we've had many stocks that are been up between 10x to 50x in the past months, and we're looking for our first 100 bagger. We're going to find out. There's a lot of people saying that Tetra could be that 100 bagger, so we're going to have some questions. And again, anybody that's watching, please ask Dr. Chamberlain your questions, and then decide for yourself if Tetra is going to be that 10x to 100x stock. So with that said, Dr. Guy, can I call you Dr. Guy? It's easier for me.
Sure.
Okay. So let's kind of unpack the recent news. You've had a lot of news in the last 10 days. I mean, it's like been an avalanche. I think we should start off with the phase 2 trials. You got 2 phase 2 trials going on right now. Give us an update on what's happening.
Absolutely. Well, the one that I'll start with the news of this morning, the Plenitude trial. It's been rolling since September of last year in the United States with Dr. Susisley in Arizona. Obviously, COVID had some impact on enrolling patients, which is normal. Hospitals obviously were busy trying to save lives, and we're not necessarily referring patients to a pain clinical trial. So our news this morning is we decided, obviously, there's a slowdown in the enrollment. So we're going to go out and, do some radio ads, try to increase the awareness to patients in the local area and, regional areas to let them know there is a cancer pain trial going on with quick sleep, and hopefully increase patient demands through their physicians and hospitals to be referred to the sites for the trial. That's important. So obviously, this is part of clinical development where operations decide what we need now to increase the enrollment. And now that we know we can get patients, you don't do that during COVID because, like we explained multiple times to our shareholders, physicians were busy saving lives, and pain they could treat with morphine or anything else. So obviously that was not necessarily something urgent, say, for them to refer a patient to these sites. So now that's up and rolling. That's what we announced this morning, and I think that's key. The second trial, the Reborn 1 trial that I think everybody's talking about, everybody's excited about. I'm excited about because, I personally suffered from a disc hernia many times, and the acute pain is so severe. You take opioids and numb yourself, and you can't even work. I mean, I couldn't even be talking to you and function with my brain when they give that to you. Whereas we know very well from what we've shown in our phase 1 trials in healthy volunteers, a drug like Quicksleeve actually would allow me to function. Yeah, it takes a bit of adapting the first times you're taking THC, but we showed in our trials how the pharmacodynamics were that people kind of develop a tolerance, and their cognitive function, say, comes back to somebody that can function. And that was key for regulators. Regulators wanted us to be able to show that giving Quicksleeve will not prevent people from functioning. So when you see the demand of people suffering from acute exacerbations of pain, this trial is, to me, one of the most important ones, if not of the century. I mean, we're going head to head against a fast release morphine. If we see any signs that this thing is working, I mean, this could be a game changer. This could be a solution for physicians treating all types of patients, even patients with disc hernias that have these acute pain flare-ups. I mean, you just can't always be popping opioids that put you at risk. There is no risk of respiratory depression with a drug like Quicksleeve. So I think these are massive trials in terms of social importance. And I think our shareholder base saw that, and they came behind us and started to rally behind us with this.
I think that what's been happening in the last in the last few months is that investors are they're starting to understand. I think there's two things. One is they're kind of starting to understand how big the opportunity is, but even more important is that they see you're really getting close to the finish line. So this is not like one of these drug development things that's going on for the next 20 years. I mean, you're basically 12 months away. I mean, you said to have multiple drugs on the market. I mean, right now you have the pipeline is going to start coming to fruition the next 12, 18 months.
It's the same drug though. So Quicksleeve is the same drug in the Reborn trial and the Plenitude, but you're 100% correct. One, when you read a clinical trial, you see that, let's say, when the patient comes in to when the patient's out, let's say it's 10 weeks. Well, it's the first patient in takes him or her 10 weeks to complete. But I need to increase the enrollment. So the faster I can get my patients to enroll in the trial, the shorter the overall length of the trial is. That's why sometimes, like you say, some trials can take over a year because you don't get your patients in. Sometimes that's why we increase the number of sites so that we can increase the enrollment. But then the FDA will say, well, you can't have, say, 100 sites with 100 patients, 1 patient per site. Doesn't work that way. So there's a minimum, say, about 10 patients per site we try to get in. So there's a game we have to play with the regulators in that. But in the case of Reborn, it's a small trial. And we think with the number of patients out there suffering from acute pain and breakthrough pain, which is a type of cancer pain, we're very optimistic that we're going to see a very high influx of patient demand coming into this trial.
And I think the key thing again is as you've mentioned it is you can see you're going to see kind of the endpoint, the result right away. Whether in other words, does it take away the pain or not? It's not like a drug where it's a very marginal thing where it's a lot of gray areas. I mean, it's pretty black and white.
It's pretty black and white, but it's also a powerful trial because it's a crossover design. So that means each patient that comes in, let's say you're randomized to group A. Group A, you'll be getting, say, morphine, the first, say, 5 weeks type of thing. And you're getting a placebo of Quicksleeve. Then when you're finished that, you get kind of a washout, and then you get on to Quicksleeve with a placebo of morphine. So all the time that you're in this trial, you don't know what you're getting, but you know that you're getting a drug for the symptomatic relief of your pain. And that's important because sometimes when you go against placebo, you get a lot of dropouts in the placebo because these patients don't have anything for their suffering. So these are usually very, very powerful trials and well designed. And it kind of decreases what we call the variation from patient to patient because we compare the patient finally to himself or herself. We look how they behave, say, on morphine, how they behaved on Quicksleeve. So overall, even though there's a small number, statistically speaking, the outcome is very powerful.
Okay, and so let's talk about another piece of news which I thought was very very compelling is the distribution deal. So can you explain the distribution deal you announced last week in Europe? If you can provide some color on that, like how that's going to work, what kind of revenues that's going to bring in, and when.
Sure. For us, the goal of last year, obviously, we decided we'd go after creating our revenue division. Just includes the Reduvo, which we're in great shape, again, to be getting our DIN, to be the first company selling a prescription drug, say, of THC oils here in Canada. The goal is to start to get a serious revenue division. And by that, we mean, we need to start to get revenues to start to decrease the level of funding that we need. I mean, we want to continue accelerating our trials, getting these, and our basically commercial team went out and found some partners in Europe, and now we're able to bring drugs like Imjuka. Imjuka is kind of the medical cannabis side of Quicksleaf, so it's a bit different. It's not manufactured under, say, the exact same conditions and methods that are required by the FDA, because there's a cost involved and there's no reimbursement. So Imjuka has to go and compete against the other medical marijuana products, but it has the benefits of all our science. So this is what the team went and signed a possibility basically to take these drugs into Europe and sell them under the medical cannabis regulations over there. And it's going to include the day we bring forward our, what we call the Reduvo Adversa, which is a sustained release of THC through the buccal membrane inside the mouth. And that's also going to be available to those partners. So we're going to grow and develop our relationship and allow ourselves to basically expand our sales and revenues in there in Europe. And our target with Reduvo is to have sales beginning at the end of this year. And that's of utmost important for us to have this footprint here in Canada, get the revenues to start, and hopefully if the sales team can drive the sales up and penetrate part of that 80 million potential market, then obviously they'll offset the need again for financing. That's our strategy. Okay.
So basically, so I think that there's right now, just in the last couple of weeks, you've had some key announcements you've made, which give an indication of that there is the revenue stream is basically starting this year in 2021. You got this licensing deal, you get the Reduvo is coming out in Canada. So you're becoming a revenue company, and next year you will have these other drugs which are targeting essentially multi-billion-dollar opportunities.
Correct. And you got to keep in mind we're in what I call a high risk business, because we're working with Schedule I drugs like THC. So it's not, you just don't get a DIN just like that for these drugs. So when we announced recently that we finally got our license, our drug establishment license for Health Canada, on there was not just that we had the right to sell this drug, but they also announced basically it granted a DELC to our warehouse where the drug is going to be kept. Obviously, we're not naming them for strategic reasons, but these are all requirements. So right now we've crossed basically all the I's and the T's. The last evaluation is the scientific from Health Canada, but we all know this drug is very, very well known. I mean, nobody at FDA or Health Canada can deny the benefits of THC in CINV and some of the other indications. I mean, it's pretty clear cut. And that's entirely what the medical marijuana regulations are based on here in Canada. So we're pretty confident that we're now in a low risk path to getting our DIN.
Okay, and essentially, once you have, once you get approvals, there's also going to be, I think, one of the big markets is kind of the off-label use, where it could be used for other things. It could be prescribed for, I don't know. And I think one of the markets you mentioned that you're going after is also sepsis, which is, I don't know, 50 billion plus.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're all, like you're saying, I mean, just the cancer pain itself, just cancer pain is a $7 billion US market. I mean, it's not small. If you look at the overall pain market, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of billions. We're in that game, and the immunomodulator, again, is the same thing. Sepsis, you're talking about $132 billion markets. It's, these are pretty key markets for us to go. But you're right. I mean, if you look at physicians, an off-label prescription of, say, dronabinol and nabilon in the United States, these are driven by the need of patients to get on alternatives other than opioids or, even methadone and drugs like that, especially if you're looking at even palliative care, for example. If you're a cancer patient and you're coming near the end, I mean, some patients don't respond, some don't tolerate the opioids. What do you give them? And they're in massive pain. So this is what Tetra is about, is getting the alternatives to physicians and getting reimbursement behind it. Because, if you're a cancer patient and you're putting all of your money on trying to get adequate treatment to try and save your life, to some of the cancer therapies, the last thing you want to do is be paying expensive drugs with no reimbursement.
Yeah. Okay. So we got, really, the news has been the last couple of weeks tremendous. So now the only not tremendous thing, according to some shareholders, the one thing that some people are upset about is the financing. They're saying, "Oh, why did you do this now? Why are you raising money now? Why didn't you wait, another month? The stock could have gotten to $1, So maybe if you can address that head on, why do you choose to do it when you do? And then we'll open up for investor questions. I know we probably have we get like almost 400 people watching on YouTube. We probably have another couple of hundred. So we got hundreds of people interested in the stock now. So this is. So we're gonna have a lot of questions.
They're never simple answers to when a company triggers it, but I'll go through kind of our reflection. And I also tell people to kind of go back to, the end of Q4 of our fiscal year, where people were kind of like seeing how let's say dry the bank account was coming. But I'm going to talk to you, I'll give it to you from an operational point of view, as CEO trying to deliver on his reborn, trying to deliver on the sepsis drugs. The company had two choices. We could delay, we could take the risk of delaying by a month and hope for better terms, hope for a better financing. But we knew we had to do it before, say, the end of June. We had to get the money in before the end of June. That's key. So obviously you look for the best terms, the best conditions, and the company triggers it because they can't obviously let the company get into trouble. For me, the trouble is not even at that point. The question the board had to look at is we got Plenitude rolling. Do you stop Plenitude just to put all your cash, say, behind Reborn and behind the sepsis drug ARDS? Do you do that? Or do you decide that you move Reborn, obviously priority, along with the ARDS, but you still got to take care of the patients suffering from cancer pain? I mean, they're still out there. They still got no alternatives. So these are part of the decisions that the company looked at. And, historically, if you go back and you look every year when Tetra would come out and do fundings, the banks come to you because they know we're a biotech, very easy. Take out your calculator, look at our burn, and everything's in the MD&A, and then you'll come out and say, okay, these guys have to come up for air, say in January or February. So every year they would begin shorting us in December, and it's, the CFOs play a game of ping pong with them, saying no and try and stop it, and back and forth. As you get closer to, say, the bank account drying out, then obviously what happens is the intensity of the shorts become obviously a lot stronger. And we saw that last week, very, very powerful actions against Tetra stock. And it's not good for shareholders, but unfortunately, that's the game these bankers play here in Canada. And so the board obviously made the decision that the best thing for shareholders was not to slow down the trials, to be sure we were well financed, because the next time we come up safe to finance, we want to have results. Bankers want to see that this drug is really delivering and Reborn is really beating the pants off morphine. Then I'll get very, very good terms on my financings. So I think that's kind of what people don't see. They see that, okay, they still got money in the bank. Why do you come out now?
Yeah. So so we got a question. This is a typical question. Why announce a financing raise in the middle of a rally? Okay, let me answer this question, Guy, if I may. So I would say, look, I have this for companies in your position all the time. The reality is, look, I think the stock probably was going to keep going. I thought it could go to $1, but the thing is, there's a difference between the investor, the guy who's watching the stock, and a guy who's running a business. A guy who's running a business is not in the business of watching the stock. You're not in the speculation business. That's what the investor is, a speculator. You're in the business of, you got to pay for a truck. You have a business to run, and if somebody's offering you money, sure, the stock may go higher, but you know what? You got to take it when you can get it. There's a completely different mindset between being an investor and running a business. So and if you have anything to add,
Yeah, and keep in mind the last time we did a raise, because we were, pretty much end of the road, the terms were bad and you don't have much choice. So you don't want to get back to that position. And with no revenues coming in, it comes fast. It's not, it doesn't. One thing people don't understand, when we run clinical trials, you don't pay, how could I say, a certain amount every 2 weeks. You pay in, how could I say, in lumps. So you kind of sometimes pay 30% when you start of the entire trial. There are fixed costs and, variable costs that come along with a trial, but a clinical research organization is not a bank. It's not going to fund you. So you have to be sure that you secure more than a month of operations before you launch.
Right. You can't wait. You can't wait. I mean, in other words, let's say, okay, the stock is 75 cents, and it's already end of May. I mean, I don't think you could wait those 3 weeks, really. I mean, you can't wait till the last minute. You're not in the timing business. I mean, you're not like a day trader. I mean,
and imagine the markets go bad next week. What do we do?
And they're going bad right now.
Yeah, that's what we're told. So I think the board made the right decision based on all the circumstances. Not the ideal world for every shareholder, but I think when they looked at all the facts and all the alternatives on the table, I think they made the right choice for shareholders.
Yeah, there's never a perfect time. And look, I mean, we had for example, we had a CEO of a very successful. Actually, who we had on one of our programs, we had Bruce Linton, who very successful cannabis guy, and look, he's been kind of in a similar position, and he was another company called was it Red Light, and he was saying, look, sometimes you got to take a deal that's a crappy deal, and you'll make a better one the next time. But you got to do, when the money's offered to you, sometimes you just got to take it, and then and because in the big picture, this is not going to matter in 6 months from now. Once you're getting some real traction with clinical trial, 12 months from now, a year from now, I mean, nobody's going to say, oh, wow, they should have waited till the stock is, 75 cents. The stock could be $10 next year. I mean, we had, one of your big investors saying the stock could be, we said, I think we said 20. So over 20. That was because I said, can it be 100x? So there is a big, if you can go after these big market opportunities, is a huge upside. And look, this is the cost of entry. Is that you got to sometimes do these deals.
But I mean, put it this way, Jack. I have my intellectual property. Some of my drugs, it's granted in Europe, granted in the United States. If I prove in my phase 2 trial that this drug is going to win, any one of the two, I mean, it's a game changer. And 20-fold might be low.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Okay, so let's talk. What else is so we got a bunch of questions about the finance. I mean, I don't even want to go through.
We got Europe coming as well.
The big questions. What's that?
Let's get to the real things that people want to know.
Yeah,
submitted to Europe. People want to know why. They were a bit confused. What's the difference between Reborn 1, Reborn 2? And basically what we're doing is we went out to get an opinion from the European Medicines Agency. That we want to know is when we do Reborn 2, the trial, that's the second one that follows the one that's ongoing now, would that be sufficient basically to get our approval of the drug in Europe? You want to know that, because if it's not, we'll have to negotiate, say, a trial for both, say, jurisdictions, the United States and Europe. You want to do a single trial to go and bring your drug to the market. So we're taking advantage of that process and going to them to get their feedback. We're hoping they'll agree, with the FDA's view of what the Reborn 2 trial looks like. And if everybody agrees, that's perfect. The roadmap will be set for Europe. And, for us, that's a very, very important one.
Okay. Question here. Guy, have you had any interest in JV opportunities from any other companies for your 2 lead drugs?
Well, unfortunately for people, I can't comment on things that are not in the public domain. So I certainly invite everybody to read our MD&As, and certainly to our annual general assembly is coming up. So invite shareholders obviously to register and be listening to us, where we kind of do a year end. So kind of update all of our achievements of the year and lay kind of the vision of where we're going next year.
Okay, I think this is a very important question. Okay, so the financing you just did, you're raising $10 million. So the question is, will this financing take care of both phase 2 trials, or how far will this take you? I guess is the question.
I'll talk about the 3 trials. I'll talk about the sepsis, say COVID trial as well. So the financing will take care of the COVID trial for sure. The healthy volunteer trial with the immunomodulator, the ARDS-003. The reborn trial, yes, it takes care of that one as long as it doesn't drag on. That's why, again, we need to go out and, how could I say, promote that we're looking for patients, because the longer it takes us to find patients, the more months the trial drags on. Keep in mind, we have that fixed cost. So every month I drag it out, that fixed cost is not disappearing. So that's why trial enrollment is important. I want people to understand that, because sometimes I may say, like I did at one point, I had the money, say, to do something, then you get a delay, and then they say, well, Guy, why are you missing money? Well, unfortunately, people don't work for free, and nor do the CROs we work for. So that money goes. So you have to be careful. We try and explain that in the MD&A and the short form prospectus as well. But if you're not used to this type of environment, it's a complex, thing to see. But I'm always available, again, to answer people if they have questions on that. As for Plenitude is a bigger trial. So Plenitude, I doubt this raise will cover all of Plenitude if it goes to the end, because it's a very long trial. If you go to the public documents, you'll see the total cost of the Plenitude for running it. So it's pretty high. But hopefully we'll bring it to a point where we may decide actually to do an interim analysis and take a look and reveal that to a market. Obviously, if Reborn were to be very successful, we would definitely want to take a look at Plenitude and decide how we move from there. But having the financing right now gives us the opportunity to deliver on everything basically we've presented in the last prospectus. Last prospectus, we were clear that the money would just bring us to a certain period, and that was it. We'd have to come back out for air. So you don't want to slow down. And this time, like you said, we're able to raise to be able to deliver on these trials.
Yeah, no, it definitely gives you more altitude. So get a question from Marcel. How soon might you provide some insight as to how the head-to-head trial is going? So the morphine versus the TBP.
So we're hoping to give an update at the annual General Assembly. So I'm hoping to have that's on May 28th, 2 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. So we'll certainly be giving a more detailed update. Typically, that's followed usually the day before that morning with a news release from management kind of summarizing it. And that's, of course, based on the TSX regulations, where I have to be sure everything's in the public domain that I'm going to say. So it's kind of one of those games that we just have to make sure everything's out. Sometimes we issue it the same morning or afternoon as the AGM, not to have nobody listening to us.
Okay, so basically in 2 weeks, we're going to know.
Yeah, in 2 weeks we'll be able to give everybody an update, and as you can imagine, we're pushing as hard as we can. We're increasing the promotion to drive patients to ask their physicians for the trials. The news release of this morning serves that purpose as well. People are going to hear it. Obviously, very major coverage. Clinics see it, physicians see it. And then we begin a radio campaign for Plenitude to drive the patients to see it. It's things we hope can go on their own, because there's a cost involved in doing those. It's not that high, but you hope that the trials can just go on their own. In the case of, that's one of the impacts of COVID. And we're not the only company that's facing that type of issue.
Okay, so the key takeaway is you got the financing in place, which is gonna get you through these trials. You got we're gonna have in 2 weeks, we're gonna have some news about the head-to-head trial.
Correct.
And let's see. So I think that pretty much. Do we have any other questions? Guy, what else? Okay, let's wrap up here. You've answered the financing question, which is the big thing, which everybody's like, why do these guys?
It's a mix of opinions.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of congratulations from people that are obviously in the biotech sector that are saying, man, you guys are lucky. Been told by several that you're probably one of the last companies to do a financing, because the way the markets are going. So I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly, I'm very happy for shareholders, because that means I don't have to slow down, because the last thing I want to do is slow down, especially now. I have patients that write to me. It's fantastic to hear that you can maybe change a life with a drug. It doesn't happen often in your career. I mean, I've been doing this since 1995, and I can count the number of times I've seen a drug that actually helps patients. I've seen so many that have failed that, but this time I'm very confident. That's one of the advantages of inhaled THC CBD. There's so much evidence out there, and we have so much strong data from our phase 1, our metabolism study, that, we're pretty confident of what this is going to do. And one thing people don't catch is when we do pharmacodynamics. I'll explain it this way. Many times, if we go into a phase 1 trial in volunteers, I can't get an insight into the efficacy of my drug because there's no way that your body will, say, react because you're not sick. The good example of pharmacodynamics, if I'm doing a blood pressure drug, I can go into a healthy person and measure their blood pressure. That's called pharmacodynamics. In the case of THC, it has an effect on cognitive function, obviously euphoria. So I can be monitoring and quantifying that in my volunteers and assess how it behaves, how it's triggered, many things like that we can assess. So we understand very, very well how quick sleep works in people from a pharmacodynamic point of view. And that's why we're very confident that we're going to win against morphine. And we've, in the press release actually of last week, we actually decided to show kind of a curve to show people what's the consistency of inhalation. One of the challenges that you have with an inhaled drug is ensuring that patients always get the same thing, especially in a trial. If I invest $3-4 million on a trial, my CFO doesn't want to hear that the 20 patients didn't get the same dose. You want to be able to show people, not just the regulators, but the financial people, that my patients are going to always receive consistently. And that's important for 2 reasons. One, if you're a physician, I don't want you to get, say, the full dose of a drug one day that's actually helping you, and then the next day when you take it, you only get half the dose, and then your pain's back type of thing. So you want to always be sure that you're getting the same efficacy. And Tetra, since 2016, we've been working on that, and we've been able to show the regulators that we can deliver consistently the same cannabinoids to the patient. And that's very, very important. Then we showed the safety of the metabolism of these in humans. So we have a very strong file for quick sleep.
Okay. Let's a couple more questions. Marcel is asking, would a cancer patient on your product be much more coherent than if they were taking the opioid?
Yeah, those were discussions we had with the regulators, and it was a key factor. So some of the regulators said, and when we're doing our phase 1, because we did what we call a single dose escalation and a multiple day, basically, escalation. And that's key because we looked at the cognitive function. We saw some, changes, obviously negative changes on visual perception and things like that in volunteers. But as we went from a single dose to a 7, we were able to show that the patient kind of adapted to it. And that's key because if you're going to go into other conditions like fibromyalgia and that, you don't want to be decreasing the functioning of a patient. A good example, as I think your prior guest was kind of talking about that, is like the SSRIs. The SSRIs have many, negative impacts on patients and stop them from functioning. Just like I told you, when I had my disc hernia, I couldn't work. I went to find a herbalist to give me some, herbs for my pain because I couldn't do my job in regulatory being on opioids. And, you don't have that with quick sleep.
Okay. Okay. So we got a couple. Okay. Was there an insider that sold shares recently? Was it like
there was an executive that sold some shares, but he obviously verified with internally if we were in a blackout period and if they could sell. And according to the TSX and the Ontario Securities, he was clear to sell, and that's up to his own discretion. The company, we don't, manage how other people manage their equity.
Listen, people have bills to pay. I mean, I don't know. It's again, not, there is the difference between being a day trader and, having running a business or having expenses in life. Okay. We got a couple more questions. Let's see here. Questions about, okay. So we got, let's see, we got, okay. So we got people saying that, okay, why didn't you take, somebody else offering you the cash? Why did you go to the bank? Like, was there, why did you go with these banks versus some other investors here?
Well, if I put it to you in the eyes of, say, a CEO's job is always out there educating multiple banks. We speak to banks all the time, and we've been developing a relationship with the new healthcare sector at Echelon. There's a whole bunch of new people came in. We've been working with them on basically trying to find some strategic financing in that. So, and we had 3-4 banks reach out to us. I don't think when your stock's doing what it was doing over the last 2 weeks.
Echelon is new. They're all. You haven't done business with them before, right?
We had done the raises before
Yeah.
with them, but it's not the same group. The people that came in are very, very different. They have a healthcare analyst now. They're trying to create their healthcare sector. So obviously they made us the offer that the board thought was, very good. But we talked to multiple banks, and analysts call us. It's part of our day job of a CEO.
Right. No, I mean, look, there's multiple factors, that you have to consider when you're doing financing. It's not just what deal is like, is it, what's the best deal? It's multiple factors. Are you going to get analyst coverage? You're going to get other stuff. And the bankers do their job too. They have a job. I mean, they have to go out and get money in for their bank. So, right. But
doing this, we get offers from multiple banks. It's easy.
Okay, so the only thing is, this is a bought deal. It's 10 million. This is going to close next week, I think.
Correct.
Next week. Okay, so that's it. So, let's see. What else should we cover? Okay, I think Pradeep pretty much summarizes all good. Let's move forward. So on that note, Guy, what else is what in terms of catalysts? What else can investors look forward to in the next, let's call it 30 days? Besides you're going to have the news about the trial in the next 2 weeks, but what else is out there in the next 30 days that could move the stock? Basically?
Yeah, to move the stock, I think the big ones is I know everybody's dying to always find out about first patient in and that, and we'll see how pharma will behave at the AGM. But obviously, in the case of the Reborn, it's an open label trial, so it's easy. And I'll tell you why people in pharma are like the way I am. I'll give you a good example. My first drug in my career that I did as a director of regulatory, it was a double-blind trial in cancer patients. And the oncologist decided he had a cancer patient where the mass completely disappeared. The person only had 3 months left to live. He assumed it was not the placebo, it was our drug. He presented it at a major cancer meeting in Florida just to find out when we lifted the blind that it was the placebo. Yes, the 4-inch mass, inoperable, did disappear completely. But that's reasons we don't talk about trials. And the trials are complex. I mean, we told people we ship the drug, we move it, but then the DA has paperwork to do. The pharmacies then do their paperwork and ship. And, there's a lot of coordination. You don't want to spend your time every day, updating people. Well, this drug moved to that site, and the DA cleared it to the other one. It's a very, very complex operation. I tell people, Schedule 1 drug. That's the reason not many pharmas are in there. It's extremely complex to manage. It's not a simple job, and Tetra's good at it now. We've been doing it since 2016, but it doesn't mean that doesn't keep us busy. It does keep us busy. And Reborn, well, we're getting very good at it now after Plenitude. So, they saw how fast we were able to get it to the United States, much faster than the last time. Last time getting the first export permit took a bit longer than the regulations say, but that's the business we're in.
Okay, so that I think we've pretty much covered everything. So, Guy, I guess we'll hear from you in about 2 weeks. We'll have you back on the live stream right after the AGM.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure to come back right after.
Fantastic. Okay, Guy, thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's live stream, and we'll see you on the next one.